Back now to our top story. Sri Lanka invoking emergency powers in the search for more terrorists behind an Easter Sunday massacre. Nearly 300 people killed in coordinated bombing attacks at 3 Catholic churches and 3 luxury hotels. The suicide bombings marking the 16th attack on a house of worship since 2017. Let's bring in Jonathan Schanzer, Senior Vice President at the Foundation of Defense of Democracies, and a former counterterrorism analyst at the Treasury Department. Sir, thank you for joining us. What's your first impression of what happened here? What are your thoughts?
Well, my first impression is that this group, this NTJ as it's known, is a very small group. Not much had been known about it, and it seems highly unlikely that it was able to carry out such a sophisticated attack without some support from the outside. So immediately we begin to think about Al-Qaeda or ISIS or other Islamist groups that have had perhaps more experience in the field of terrorism and in suicide bombings and IEDs. So it'll be interesting to find out. We've heard a little bit from the government of Sri Lanka that they do see some outside help. I'd like to learn a little bit more about how much help was given and who gave it exactly.
What do you think about the uptick in attacks on people for faith-related reasons? Looking at a study that's coming out of Open Doors, which is an American group, but it's independently audited by the International Institute of Religious Freedom, there were 4,136 people killed, Christians killed, for faith-related reasons in 2018, a little over 3,000 in 2017, a little over 1,200 in 2016. So if you look at just their stats, it seems like there's a big uptick. What do you make of that?
Well, I think that part of it does have to do with Islamist ideology. We've certainly seen this in the past, whether it's sectarian violence against, Shiites attacking Sunnis or the other way around, or Islamists attacking Christians. This is something we've seen overall. The sort of migration to the West is also something that is deeply disconcerting right now. One thing that you have to think about here is that these are softer targets. In other words, what we've learned over the last decade or two is how to harden those government targets, those military targets, even some of those business targets, which are so vital for us to be able to maintain the global economy. But when you think about churches and synagogues, they're a lot easier to target, and that could be why we're seeing an uptick in this direction.
What do you think is the appropriate response from the United States?
Specifically with regard to Sri Lanka, I mean, look, we've already deployed apparently the FBI, Interpol's involved, and the president has vowed to help the Sri Lankan government. Although it does sound as if the Sri Lankan government is not helping itself. We understand that from early April there was a report warning about this attack, and there was apparently some kind of a feud between the prime minister and the president, which basically prevented the information from being processed. So in other words, whatever we do right now, we need the Sri Lankan government to be on the same page, and that may be more difficult than we had previously anticipated.
How personal is this attack to Americans, given that there were Americans there, but also that this is an ally of ours, and that could, do you think that makes them more of a target?
It certainly could make them more of a target. It's also disconcerting to see that for 10 years, Sri Lanka has been basically peaceful since the defeat of the Tamil Tigers. So we're now seeing a resurgence of violence over there. It had been a success story for us in the war on terror. So I think it should be a priority for the United States to ensure that Sri Lanka does remain calm.
And how do we do that? I mean, how do we make it a priority?
Well, I think by simply providing the kind of resources that we are already doing, by helping them with the expertise that we have in terms of hardening those targets or shoring up some of the intelligence that they may have received but failed to process. These are some of the things that we can do. The problem, of course, is that with the problem of terrorism, they're going to gravitate towards some of those softer targets. And so we may see ISIS and Al-Qaeda moving away from Iraq and Syria, where we have them defeated, and looking for some of those softer places to hit.
Jonathan Schanzer, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.